Heute habe ich eine englische Episode für euch und deswegen springe ich auch schon rüber, because today I got a guest. And Susan Ireland is going to talk about leadership, her career at Boeing, and maybe also about how to hire a great team. So she knows really how to build up great teams, how to hire amazingly, how to have a career in leadership, and all that she did not only tell me, but all of us. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and let's start with this episode with Susan live, or more or less live, but recorded from Seattle. It's Monday, and this means we got another episode. And today you can see I'm not here all by myself, but I got a guest. And that's why, first of all, welcome, Susan. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. This is really fun, and it's fun to be here next to you.
It is in real life, right?
Yes, it is.
So before we start into the episode, maybe you want to share a little bit about yourself. Like, what have you done so far, and what is your expertise?
Okay, so I was born.
Exactly, where are you from? That's actually also very important.
Okay, well, we are sitting here in Seattle, Washington, in the United States. Thank you, Patricia, for coming to visit. And so I was born here, and I grew up here. And where do I start? Not too far. So I had a long career at the Boeing company. I worked there for 30 years, and I was in the business operations function, where that function is the integrator of all the other functions. And we kind of are the back office, behind the scenes, running the business, having the schedules, working on the operating rhythm, keeping everything moving.
Okay.
It was a great job. And I had that for 30 years, and mostly in airplane development on the commercial side. So my last airplane that I worked on was the 787, the Dash 9 and the Dash 10.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was great.
30 years is quite a lot.
Yes, it is.
We got to know each other after your time at Boeing.
Yes. So I left Boeing in 2016, and because I wanted to try my hand at my own business, and so
which is pretty cool.
Yes, well, it is, and it's a great opportunity that I was able to do that. And so I started my own coaching business, leadership and executive coaching. And I had a little stint at a startup, a hydrogen system startup, which was super fun. So it kind of did everything, how startups are. But then since continuing with my coaching, and I also connected with another former Boeing employee, Debbie Collard, and we started Seasons Leadership, which is a leadership consulting coaching company, and we have a podcast.
Yeah. It's called the Seasons Leadership, right? You can find it anywhere. I put it also in the show notes.
Perfect.
So in case you want to learn more about leadership, for example, you should definitely go and check out this podcast. And today you're going to give us a sneak peek already.
Okay.
Like, what is leadership for you? How would you describe leadership?
Oh boy, I should have had notes.
Well, that's it all about, the spontaneous.
Yes. Well, leadership, I mean, it's a complex question, right? But at the very highest level, I think it's inspiring and motivating people to go in a direction altogether that they might not go on their own.
Okay, because now I have a question.
Yes.
How about intrinsic motivation? If you say to motivate others?
Right. Well, and I think from a leadership standpoint, what we're talking about leadership, it is leading others.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Intrinsic motivation is, I think, important for everybody, right?
Hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. To be inspired by something and then make it happen for yourself, which is wonderful. But and it makes life meaningful. right?
Mm-hmm.
But and so to answer your question about leadership, it's really outwardly, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
focused, because it is about others. It's serving others, humanity, and a purpose, a mission.
Would you distinguish between management and leadership?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
How would you do it?
So we manage things and we
Mhm.
lead people.
That's a nice way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what was the most challenging times you had when leading a team?
All right. Let's see. I think it's, over the years, the challenges go up and down, right? If there were no challenges, you wouldn't need me. I mean, that's really the bottom line, right? If things are going along like clockwork, it can just go. You don't need me. So usually there is a challenge of we've got a project or work, or like, oh, something happened and it threw a wrench into the works and we have to make a new plan, or that kind of thing. So the most challenging, I think, though, is when like the environment is so challenging that it's hard for people to actually focus and do their work. Because people, I think, for the most part, want to work. They're there for a lot of hours.
Yeah.
You are spending your time with your colleagues more than you are your family. And it's meaningful if we're contributing and doing our best, and whatever that best is. And so I think when the environment gets challenging, whether it's like resources are so slim, it's hard to do your job, or maybe there's chaos in the organization, and so then you've got drama, which is distracting. That makes it hard, because it's not hard to have a hard or a difficult challenge. I think like designing, building, and testing and delivering an airplane is really complicated.
That's a tough business.
It's really complicated, and it takes years. But I tell you, it is exciting and rewarding, and I worked with like the best, smartest people in the world. And, there was lots of challenges, like, things didn't work, or, suppliers were late, or whatever it was. It's always something. That's why we have jobs, right? To make this, to usher this in. To me, that's not difficult. I mean, I'm not using the right words. It's not hard. That is motivating, and I want to fix it. I want to get people together, so we're being creative together. But the most challenging leadership is when it's the environment is such that makes it hard to do your work.
And how do you handle it if maybe the environment is not too bad, but there's maybe somebody in the team who's not really motivated, who doesn't care, who doesn't show up? How would you handle this situation?
Well, it's so you, as a leader, you have to be very aware.
Aware of what? Of like the people?
Of the people, but also of what is the culture of the organization, and how do you nurture that? Because the leader, whether we like it or not, sets the culture. And even if you say, no, I don't, we're fine, how you behave on a day-to-day basis either is a shadow or a light. And the leader's responsibility is to always shine that light, because then it sets the expectations for the team, what's accepted, what's not.
Would you say that a founder or a CEO or a manager is the leader, is the person who sets the culture, or who sets the culture in a company?
Well, I think it's the top leaders, it's whatever that is. If it's a founder, if it's a CEO, if it's a board, whatever.
Yeah.
That person or those people really set the stage. So it is a huge and awesome responsibility, and it's important to accept this responsibility and act with intention.
That is a very good point you make. And the interesting thing is, I remember that the company I got in touch with, the founder was not really motivated like in culture stuff. He's like, well, we need a culture. We need, this values. We want to be looked up like this. We want to be a startup like XYZ. So, okay, let's hire a culture manager. Well, they hired a culture manager, and oops, what should I say? It didn't work out. 4 weeks later, the culture manager said, well, whatever I do, if the CEO is not doing it, if the founder is not doing it, how should it work? And imagine there's somebody being in the company for 10 years, and then there's somebody coming in for a few weeks, and he is supposed to change everything. This doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, no, it doesn't, because what we do is much louder than what we say. So if you have a list of like vision, mission, values, and you say this is who we are, but the leader or leaders are behaving differently, people will pay more attention to what they do than what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge responsibility. But back to your question, like, how do you deal with then if somebody's on your team that is like not showing up, or hard to work with, or whatever? If you have set the stage of the culture, it's an easier conversation
because everybody know what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, and the expectations are clear.
But who would set these expectations? Would you say in your team, like, that's what we're working on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, whatever that is, we as a team, we honor our promises. We have each other's back, however you want to say it. But then everybody has to, go along. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah. No.
Nobody's perfect. But if it's well known, understood, and the leader is behaving that way, then the conversation is, what's going on first, because maybe there's an issue with somebody. I think kind of now as a little side note, so you have to be very compassionate and empathetic, with the people around us. To be a leader? Yes. Yeah. Now you also have to be, set strong expectations.
But you need both sides.
You do, because say you had somebody who's working for you, and they are, they're performing well, everything's good, and then all of a sudden they aren't. So I wouldn't assume the worst, like, what kind of rotten employee are you? Yeah. You were late or something. I would always assume the best. So I would check it out first, like, what's happening here? Yeah. You don't know what's going on with somebody else. You never do. And unless you ask, and then there might be something going on. Maybe they don't have the resources that they are trying to do, and they've been trying and they haven't been able to. Yeah. And so that's something that the leader can help with. Oh, I'll go remove that roadblock for you and I'll get it done. Or maybe they've got something happening at home, or, you just don't know. Okay. And so it could be something that, you can solve in a different way. It could be that they are bored
Okay. Oh,
or,
that's interesting. Yeah.
who knows? But you can, if you're listening and you're open, you may be able to find a solution. It may be that it's the wrong job for the person and they need to go find another job.
Yeah.
It's not that they're bad. It's just maybe this is
Not the perfect.
It's wrong
like,
alignment. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So does this mean whenever you spoke with your team members, you also were open to listen what's going on in their private life? Like how much do you differentiate between business life and personal life? Because I mean, if somebody, I don't know, got a bad diagnosis, for example, or something, of course this affects also my work self. So
Yes.
how deep would you dig, or not dig, but how much would you be open for the more personal side as well as the business side? How would you go balance this out?
Yeah, that is kind of a needle to be thread, right? Because as a boss, you want to be empathetic and helpful, and do whatever you can to help your employee. I mean, having good employees is like gold.
Yeah. But how far would you go? Like, what do you mean by...
Well, you don't want to be a therapist.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I'm definitely not qualified to be a therapist. So it's that's why I mean it's you got to thread the needle. So if it for me, and I can't tell you a formula how to do this, but if I start feeling like this is too much,
Yeah.
then I always had resources for me. And working for a large company, you do have resources. But if I started feeling like this is too much for me, and I want to make sure that this person gets all the resources they have, I could refer them to HR or to some organization that could help.
Okay.
Because they deserve.
Yeah. So you would delegate.
Yeah. Or I would offer. I can't make anybody do anything that they don't want to do, but I would offer, and I would say, I could care about you, and I want the best for you, but I can't help you with this. This is I'm not qualified to do this.
Yeah.
But I am empathetic, and I want to do whatever I can from my position as your boss or leader.
How many check-ins did you have with your direct reports?
Well, so I would say optimally it would be once a week.
Okay.
But that, depending on the size of the group that you have, is maybe not
if it's doable.
Yeah. And so then then I would say every 2 weeks. You have to check in.
Yeah.
You just have to check in, because it's so easy to lose connection.
Yeah.
And
or not even build it up.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. And there's a lot. So I will say this. So this is a helpful hint. Is those one-on-one, connection when you meet with your direct reports. It's not just, hey, how's it going? Or another thing is, I have a list of hot items I need you to do, or I need status on this. You'll use up 30 minutes like in a flash. Again, you have to be very purposeful about this. And this is the boss and an employee need to do this together, because it's so easy to be derailed. But it's, talk about like, what's the latest status at a very high level of any projects. Does the employee need any help? And what is that? Any roadblocks, that kind of thing. And then the third, and then if you have any new assignments, there you go. But then the last part is always talking about employee development. So what are they working on? Are they going to class? Or, maybe somebody might be working on delegation, or, something. And so you have a conversation every single time.
And is it, when you say personal development of the employee, does it mean I have kind of a personal development plan for myself. Like, I would love to learn X, or I would love to learn Y, and you help me learning these steps? Or how would it be?
As much as I could.
Okay.
You know, so if say if we have got together and said, okay, I would know, Patricia, what are your career aspirations? You want to be CEO someday. So I say, okay, that is maybe a long way to go. You just hired in. So, but, you know, I'd say go for it. In order to do that, you need to know how the business works from a very high level. You know, what's the business model? Who are the suppliers? Who are the customers? Where are we in the market? Where's the strategy for the company? So all of those things, you know, you'd say like, oh, I don't know those. I would say like, okay, you need to learn them.
Yeah.
And here is some way. I could say here are some ways that you would learn those. And I'd say like, you really need some finance experience. So the next time there's a finance opening that you're qualified for, I think you should apply for that.
Okay.
And then, you know, so you'd have like a little plan.
Yeah, so quite proactive, actually.
Always proactive. And the employee owns this plan. The boss does not.
No, but interesting, because a lot of times I hear it the other way around, like, oh no, he or she wants to develop, and actually, you know, the employee is in the best place right now, so why it needs to be like development? Can we stop her? This is something I hear from time to time.
Yes,
but I see already in your face, you're quite shocked.
No, I'm not, because I will tell you that having a good employee that's doing her job or his job, and you don't want to mess that up. Right?
Exactly. But at the same time, it's limiting people, you know?
Oh, it totally is.
Not everybody, just to stick with your example, not everybody wants to become a CEO.
Right.
But maybe I want to develop and become a team lead, for example.
Yes.
Or some people say, no, I'm just happy the way I am here.
Yes.
So how would you, let's talk about the term A player and B player.
Okay.
How would you describe an A player?
Well, I was going to ask you,
what
does
that
mean?
Well, okay, let me share. Well, A player are these people coming on your team who are really like thriving, who are really high performers, who you give the job and they do it perfectly, and you know they're super responsible, they work on time, that's the people you want to have.
Yes.
And B player is like, hey, I'm doing my job, I'm not going the extra mile, but I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm doing it, and everything is like not a A plus, but maybe a good B.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, and I'm interested with what you say, and this is really on LinkedIn, it's always a big topic, because I believe that every company needs B players as well. Because I don't want to see it in a negative level or a negative way. Yeah. It's more like, if every single person wants to become a CEO, okay, but who does the work? Who stays in the team?
Yeah.
In my eyes, that's super complicated. So you need to have people who are super satisfied and you can count on and do their job. So what would you say? Would you say a team always needs to be full of A players where everybody wants to thrive? Or do you say a healthy team also is a mix out of people who want to develop and we're satisfied right now?
Right. Well, first of all, I would say I kind of don't like the term A and B because it's judging, like those A players are better than the B players. And what I would say too is that people are complex beings, and depending on what's happening with them holistically, you know, it may be that the reason why they have the job is because you know, they have a family to support. And so maybe they're like at this point in their life, that's what their priorities are. So, and maybe they're saying like, I could care less about being CEO. So my job as their boss would be, okay, great. I have to have that conversation. I need to know what their aspirations are, at least for right now. And so I said, okay, great. This is the job. And this is the expectations for performance. And I want that person to be the best that they can be.
Yeah.
So If they are doing mediocre work, we would have some conversations about that, about this is what expectation is, and I want high level work. For a lot of reasons, for the company, but also for that person, because they're not going to be in that phase forever.
Yeah.
So things are going to change. Who knows what? Maybe the kids are going to grow up or something, and they decide like, hey, I want to be a team lead, or I want to go do something else in another organization. And you want them as their boss, and you can have these conversations with them to be in the best position to have the most options available for them. And so that's how I would work with that person. So there's always things to work on, right? Yeah. We all can get better at something. Life. So that's the conversation I would have with this person. And who knows, like
you never know.
In the next year, that person may say, I want to be team lead, and then I want to be director or whatever. And you have helped them be in the position to be able to make those choices. The other thing is they feel heard. Like, oh, my boss is paying attention to me. It's not, I'm not just a cog in this machine doing this work.
I'm more than a number.
When you feel like a cog, you do minimal work, you know, and you're not invested, you're not engaged, so that's that person. Another person coming in who's really highly motivated, they want to be CEO. And that's great. So then you say, okay, this is what this means. And this is how is an approach to get there. And you do whatever you can to support them. Because that person, whether you support them or not, is going to be doing their own thing. So they may be saying, I'm going to leave quick because I'm going to go to this next job. Or they may say, I'm going to stay here because this boss is giving me lots of opportunities and guidance, and they are introducing me to their network. And by staying here, I'm actually learning more and getting further ahead than I would if I tried to jump around and do it on my own.
And how does it look like? Like, how would you make people seen or appreciated?
Well, hopefully they are. I mean, I feel like I appreciated the people who worked for me. I truly did. And hopefully they knew it because I expressed it. And, I did what I could to support their career aspirations. No matter what level you are, you can't do everything, but you can do what you can do.
Yeah.
And I think that, people appreciate that. So, I think one of the things that I was always working on is finding the best ways to recognize my people, good work, So it's kind of easy when there's a big project that ends and then you say, woohoo, everybody did a great job, and you can have a, celebration. But people are different, and the way that we recognize people is different. So some people like to be recognized in a big group, in front of somebody. Some people don't like that at all. And so that is, you think you're doing a good thing and then you're not. They like to be recognized in person and maybe quietly. But
it's important to be empathetic, right? To realize that,
right, and to recognize along the way. So maybe you have a big project that takes a year. So if you wait for a year to recognize them, you've kind of that's a long time to not be recognized for the work you're doing. So if there's smaller milestones you can do, or if you notice somebody, really put in extra work and they had, something, a deliverable that was very high quality or very creative or something, to acknowledge that.
Let them know.
Yeah. I tell you that one of the things that I found it just recently. So this thing is about 30 years old, but it's early in my career at Boeing, and I was doing a presentation. I have no idea what the presentation was about. But it was in front of a program leadership team. So way higher people than me at the time. And so, I gave my presentation and whatever. And I don't remember what it was or what the outcome was, but I had a director at the time, so who was several layers ahead of me, who just wrote a little note and said you did a good job, and he was very specific on what I did.
Like not a general statement, but really you knew it's a personal note for you.
Exactly. Like you knew the subject, you had a compelling story behind it, and whatever it was. But it meant so much to me that I kept them, and I was doing something, and I found like 3 of these notes from this guy, and I didn't really know him, he just did it, and I thought that was for me, that was very motivating. So.
That's it's funny because I work most of the times with Slack, like it's like Teams, like a chat program, and where you can really trigger me is when I know that I did great work. I don't need the appreciation in front of everybody.
Yes.
But if everything I get is a thumbs up or like an emoji, I'm like, seriously? Only one emoji is all you can, like not even a sentence? Right. This is making me very sad. So just in case we're working together one day, don't send me if everything was good, only an emoji. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you also had a lot of interviews to do, right? To hire for your team. What were you looking for in an interview? How did you realize the person is suitable for your team?
Well, I'm kind of proud of myself. I think I really hired really good people.
That's amazing.
I know. I really did.
And how?
Well, I think, first of all, anybody who gets through the process, right? And so you get an interview, those are pretty highly qualified people.
Okay.
So, I'll tell you what red flags are.
Okay. Make it this way around.
Yeah. So, if somebody interviews too perfectly,
like if
it's a performance.
Okay, like the candidate answers too perfectly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think like it's a red flag. It doesn't mean that it's bad, but it means like, I got to check this out. Right. Because it's just, people aren't perfect, and interviews are, they're nerve-wracking things anyway. Right. And you want the job, and you're feeling, I don't know, you want confidence.
Nervous, probably.
Yeah. You want people who are confident, but also you just know that this is an awkward place to be.
Yeah.
So anybody who does it too perfectly and is like, you think like, red flag, I need to check this out. So that's a big one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people will often tell me, I can't interview, I'm so awkward or whatever. And I think
like from a candidate perspective?
Yes. People say that to me all the time. Like, I'm a terrible interviewer. And for me now, it's just me. So if I'm looking for a job, you can be like all the awkward you want, because that just invites me to, like, let's talk more about that,
And it's your very unique answer, your unique story.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm looking for somebody who is authentic. I know that's a word that's been used a lot, but I want to know that I'm interviewing the person. Like, the person that shows up is going to be the person that I work with.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's awkward or shy or answers it kind of not perfect, oh gosh, I've been there. And but if they're real and I can tell that they're interested in the job, that gives me like a lot of insight. The other thing is to know a little bit about the job.
Yeah, definitely. And the company, right? I
Yes.
find it terrible. It's like, oh, sorry, who am I interviewing with? Like, what's that company?
Yeah. Well, and
What?
I know it's hard.
Yeah.
People like put out so many resumes now and
I get
everything.
it, but you need to keep track on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. I know.
That's the minimum you can do.
Right. So, and the cover letter, I mean, I'll
Mhm.
say you wouldn't even get an interview, but I would tell you this is what I got a lot. So I was business operations. That's
Yeah.
what it said. That you've got a job in business operations. I cannot tell you how many like cover letters I got that said, I'm so excited about having a job in finance.
Oh.
And I thought, well, maybe in some companies, finance is in business operations or whatever.
Well, we both know, no, they just didn't change it.
That's kind of what I think. So I think like part of my job requirement is you've got to pay attention to detail. So if you start out like that, that is like, ooh, you didn't.
Yeah, that's very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the minimum you can check out. Like, what does the company do? I mean, at Boeing, it's quite clear, right, what you
Right.
were doing. But there are smaller companies, so take the time. Not always say, don't send it out immediately. Prepare your resume, prepare your CV. Let maybe somebody else read it again.
Yes.
Take 1 or 2 days, sleep over it, and then send it out. Because
Right.
usually you're like, oh, wait, this is like double in there or
It's
something.
true. It's true.
Yeah.
And it's always something. Yeah.
Yeah. But so you already shared what your red flags are, and you said that you are proud of yourself because you hired quite good or really good.
Yes.
How did you realize that you hired really good people?
Oh, right away.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. They jump right in. They start working right away. There's it's when you go to a new job, there's a lot to learn, and a lot of new people to learn. It's exhausting, right? For the first couple weeks, you don't even know where to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, it's
right?
just like, where am I?
You have to talk. You have to think about everything. But the people who just jump right in and just give it their all, it's okay to make mistakes. You're new. Here's a big one. So I would tell people, and I was very, very serious about this. I don't know what it is, but I think it's about maybe 6 months. So you're a new person to the group. So you come in, fresh eyes, you're learning like what all the processes are, how we do things. And that is an outside view that is soon like taken over by the board. So you're there for 6 months or whatever that is. And then all of a sudden, it's, you can't see it anymore because you're inside.
Yeah, it's kind of eating you up, and then you got the new perspective.
Yes. And so now when you're first new, the people that I thought that I just thought were great employees, which were, no, just about them all, they would say like, hey, why do you do this? You could do it this way instead. And it's like, sometimes it was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I see that? But it's like, you're too close.
Yeah. Yeah. Like zoom out, have a new perspective, and see like, oh, we could make it, I don't know, way easier, way shorter, way different.
Or just stop doing this,
Or
maybe something. I mean, really, that's it. Like I said, do not filter, like just ask questions, challenge us, because we obviously can't, because we're not seeing it. Yeah.
Did you ever have a bad surprise that somebody came in and the first month were really beautiful, great, nice work, and after I don't know, maybe half a year or 3 months, you're like, wait, what happened to this person?
Yeah, I'd like to say no, that never happens, but it does. And I guess the thing is, like, as good as I think I am at interviewing, there just maybe I miss something. Somebody is looking for something else, and then this is what it is, and they're unhappy. It's just not the right fit, and I think when people get unhappy or disillusioned or was hoping it was something else, sometimes they just their behaviors aren't as maybe as I would hope, because I think you can always have a conversation like, this isn't the right job, or something, I need to change something, rather than
But
cause the drama.
That's always better. But
Yeah.
you didn't follow the philosophy of let's hire and fire, let's see how it works out. It's more like, hey, I'm hiring for a long term.
Oh yeah.
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 No, no, I would never have I'm just going to hire and fire. No, no.
Yeah.
And depending on where you are in the world, there's different rules and all of that. So,
Yeah.
one of the things, if I had a short-term job that, you have to look at your budget and your forecast for your team and all of that. If there was a short-term job that required a specific skill or something, I would consider just hiring a contract person for just that portion of time.
Yeah.
So I don't.
So exactly the person will be here for 6 months. It's a contract for 6 months, and then it's over.
Right.
And yeah, this makes totally sense.
Well, and I was able to do that just because, it doesn't, especially if it's a specific skill. Yeah. And another thing I could do, and again, I came from Boeing, so it was a big company. And there was sometimes where working with other leaders, you could say if I had a specific something I was going to do, and somebody needed a development opportunity. So like somebody could come and do that job from another organization just to get the experience there. So that kind of worked nice too.
Okay, that's cool. So what would you say is, imagine somebody just starting off his interviewing career. So he or she might start to build a team. What would you say is your number one go-to tip? Like, what should you definitely do, check out, prepare?
So I would have a very detailed job description. And with expectations. So sometimes the job requisition, like I have this job is kind of broad. But then, so as I might not do it like right off the bat. So if I had I went through some interviews and maybe I had 3 top candidates. At that point, I would say, okay, I want to talk to you about the specific job. What is really the expectation? How many hours is this going to be? Where are you going to, you're going to have half your time, you're going to be doing admin stuff. And then half your time, you're going to do creative stuff or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that you can really have a conversation about the kind of work and the expectations I have about that. So, because then later you're going to have that and that person's going to be measured on the performance to that.
Yeah.
So there's no surprises, basically.
And what I really like about that part is what I realized is don't write it down in 1 day or 1 hour, but take your time. Like whenever you feel, oh, this should be done by the new person, write it down. Oh, this would be also a great task, write it down. And after a few weeks, you know exactly what this new person does, which helps you as the leader because okay, what should I learn the new person? What should I have a look at? And at the same time, the new person knows, oh yeah, okay, that's my job. I got to do this. I got to do that. So they can prepare in that way and hopefully thrive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And is there any tip you would give your younger self, let's say right at the beginning of your Boeing career?
Yeah. Take more risks.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Like what?
Well, so, and I think women do this more than men, at least I think I've read this and I've experienced this. So, but I do think everybody does this. I mean, a lot of people do this. And that is, so if you want your career to go a certain direction, and you've got some steps to get there. So typically I would say, okay, what are the requirements for that next step? And I have them lists and I check them all off. And when I got them all checked, then I would go for it. And so what I mean by take more risks is, maybe half of those things are checked off.
You'll never check all the boxes.
No. Well, and just go for it.
Yeah.
Because people hire you for your potential.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right? And they think she can do this.
Yeah.
Now she may have to learn and we might have to give her some experience and that kind of thing, but let's put her there.
Mhm.
And I think that's, people who move fast up the chain, I think that's what they're doing.
I like that a lot. Cool. Anything else you would like to share with our listeners to say, hey, if that's your career, take this advice or maybe this experience that you also have?
Well, I would say take the responsibility for your career. Make a plan. You can always adjust the plan.
Yeah.
But make it and write it down, because if you just write it down, you have more of a chance to actually make it happen. And then tell people about it, your boss, your colleagues.
Like peer pressure for your goal.
Yeah, well, and they'll also help you. People want to help.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I mean, you just tell people, I want to get this experience, and it may not happen right away, but people want to help. So I would say take responsibility for your own. And then, another thing, and this is, so I'm a coach, but I would say get a coach because that will accelerate your progress.
Will help you to find your way and keep track on your guideline.
Well, and push you a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to ask your coach, this is what I want to do. I want, because life gets busy and, we get preoccupied. We don't prioritize ourselves and our careers. We kind of get wrapped up in everything. So, I mean, having a coach is also helps you take the time to be intentional about where you're going to go next. And I know that, I think if I even had a coach when I was younger, would it be different?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I have to say I had a lot of good mentors, but mentors are a little bit different than a coach.
How would you differentiate?
Mentors are people who, have experience in a certain field or a business, and they're a little bit ahead of you, right? And so when you talk to your mentor, they're giving you information. I mentor people a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm specific. I'm mentoring you now. Do this process. It will work. Try this. If you're having a business situation, okay, let's try this. It's more of a content-driven kind of conversation. Coaching is more of it's a relationship and a co-creating kind of space, and where I or your coach would ask questions that allow you to really reflect on what's important to you. What does this really mean? The direction that you're going to take is way different than the direction I'm going to take. So a mentor might tell you, do this.
Yeah.
A coach will tell you, so why are you curious about that? Why do you want that? And we might explore that. And it may be that I'm doing it because my dad told me it was a smart thing to do.
Yeah, maybe also a mix out of it would be cool, to have a mentor and a coach.
Yes.
In addition.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, anybody I coach, the first thing I ask them is, who's your mentor?
Okay.
And if they say, well, I don't have one, I say, go get one.
But how do you get a mentor?
Well, what I offer people is, I think the best thing is if there's somebody in your field, in your business that you admire, they're ahead of you. I wouldn't even say not 10 steps ahead of you. And I'll tell you why. It's not for what you think it is, but a little bit ahead of you. And if you admire what they're doing, if you admire their leadership style, if you think, boy, they are the best delegators ever, or they can speak really well, just reach out and say, hey, I noticed
just
this.
Try, take a risk.
Yeah, I noticed this. I really like it. I'm working on it. Can we, have a cup of coffee or something? And I'd like to talk to you about it. And then you say, I'd love to have a mentor relationship with you.
That's good, because something I read last week, an article about mentorship, and it said, and I loved it, is a mentor is somebody who's one step ahead of you,
Yeah.
not 10.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot.
Why did they say not 10?
Well, actually, they said because you need to focus on what's the next step, because if you won't make the next step, you won't make the next 10 steps.
Oh.
So it must be like lettering up.
Yeah.
But what is your answer?
Well, I mean, that's a good answer too. That's true. I think it's because people too far ahead are too removed from the reality of what you're experiencing. So it may be that they came up the same way, you know, in the organization. I experienced this. I'll give you an example. So I was a director, and then we had like an intern came in, so right from college, and then she got hired. And so, and I was in a mentor program, and we got matched up. So that's why I knew her. So she would come in and we would mentor, and she would tell me about stuff, and we'd talk. Well, I tell you, I learned way more from her than she ever learned from me. So, you know, I could explain, here's the organization and here's how it works. But her specific job, even though I did something similar, like 20 years before, it was nowhere near what she was doing. So I couldn't say like, do this or do that. You know, I'd have to say, go ask, you know, somebody else. Because the specific mechanics of it has changed so much. But she would tell me, she goes, oh, have you done this on your computer? And have you done this? And I would like, no, let's, you know, let's set me up with this. And then they had groups happening here with like interns or new employees. And I had no idea they were doing all of that. So then I got connected with them. So she was actually much more of a mentor to me than I was to her.
I love that. You know why? I have a mentor myself, and I'm so thankful for him, like sharing with me his experience, helping me for the next step. But I always have the feeling I cannot help him anything. Like, thank you for your time. I'm sorry I'm wasting it.
Oh,
and he always says, well, but I learned this and this from you today, and I learned so much from you. And I'm like, what do you want to learn from me? And he's like, believe me, a lot. And it's like vice versa. It's like both sides.
Very much so.
And I'm still working on this, like seeing it this way, but I'm really like, I appreciate it a lot. But that's great. Yeah, I can only motivate everyone to find a mentor and to learn from both sides, actually.
It is. It's very good. You know, it's also that networking and relationships, and it gives you time and space to also think about your career and where you're going.
Yeah. Cool. With this said, thank you, Susan, so much for having you here, for letting me being here, actually, not having you here. And thank you for the great podcast.
Thank you.